Good morning, Congressman. How you doing?
Good. How are you this morning, Garrett?
I'm okay. I'm a little frustrated. I'm sure you are as well. What was your reaction to Governor Ducey saying, well, it took him like a half an hour to get to say that he's going to just extend this with modifications, which are confusing and no mention of daycare or anything like that. He kind of made the case by saying we're all prepared, right? We're all prepared in Arizona, yet he said we must continue this stay-at-home order. So what's your reaction to this?
Well, I was baffled, quite frankly. Look, this. If we're going to have freedom in America, we know a couple things. We know that Americans are responsible enough to get out and have freedom, and we know if you don't want to be outside, if you don't want to open your business, and you don't want to go out, you feel insecure, you can stay in. That would be your choice. You'd be allowed to do that, and you could open up your businesses and get back to work. And just trust the American people and just remind them what some guidelines are. But we know who the most vulnerable population is. And what I don't understand is why we don't say we're going to really make some really strong advice to the most vulnerable population, stay in, stay quarantined. We're going to provide resources to help with that. But the rest of the country and the rest of the state, we're going to open up. For probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million, you could test every assisted living facility resident and all the workers and just see where they are. And my guess is that's where your hot spot is. The reason that's a guess is because the data shows that everywhere we have it. So we should be free, but we're not going to be free here. We're going to instead continue with authoritarianism. And I was particularly discombobulated by the threats that were given, that we're going to enforce this and arrest you or take away your government-issued licenses to do business, if you're a liquor license or whatever else you may have. They're going to hold this over your head with these levers, and I think that is just absolutely hard for me to fathom.
And he tried to backtrack a little bit right after that, but I thought it was too late at that point. So knowing that he said this, and it was remarkable, how he threatened his own constituents with jail time if they're like, I just need to make a living to pay rent, to feed my kids. He wants to put them in jail for up to 6 months, fine them up to $2,500, take their liquor license away, which I've been told by off-duty police, retired police, that they said we've actually witnessed bars serving minors, shootings inside bars, and they never take their liquor license. But now they're going to do it. So what's your advice to business owners this morning?
Well, my advice all along has been to open up, and I still don't understand where the executive thinks that it gets its power. But I always say, go talk to your lawyer, figure out the way to get this thing up and going. But look, Garrett, we're talking people who aren't receiving the PPP. We're talking to people who are waiting in line to get unemployment benefits. They need to be able to work to sustain and support the family. This has such a wide range of cascading effects. We have over 30 million people unemployed in this country, and there are estimates that there's another 10 or 15% who simply haven't been able to file their first-time claim because all the systems have been overburdened. So I say, do the same thing. If you can work. Who are they to decide that you're non-essential? Who gave them the legal authority to do that? And I find it absolutely unmitigated gall for someone to say you can't work, and if you do, we're going to arrest you, and we're going to subject you to the same sentence guidelines that we would for a DUI or for some other criminal offense where you've committed an assault on somebody. But if you choose to stay in, stay in. If you want to work, for Pete's sakes. This has really got to come to some kind of rational conclusion.
Congressman Andy Biggs is on KNST AM 790. I received a question from State Rep Mark Fincham. Business people are reaching out to him and me. And word has it, Congressman, that you also are a lawyer, not holding it against you.
Yes, okay.
But State Rep Fincham, you're right. State Rep Fincham has a question. and businessmen have expressed concern if the governor's action, absent reliable evidence or not, is a government taking. And under a declaration of a public health emergency without proof that house arrest or even limited commercial intercourse, there must be justification. Even then, the order is a taking. Would you agree with that? That this is a taking, and this is legalese, and maybe you can explain, but this is basically illegal that the governor did that.
Yeah. So a taking, without giving a specific legal advice, and I would just, before I say this, I would say, if you have any questions, go to a reputable lawyer. It may be hard to find a reputable lawyer, but you should go to a lawyer and get clarification about your own personal circumstance. But a taking is when, typically, when the government comes in, and we usually think of it in terms of they take a portion of your property to widen a road or something like that. So they are required under our state constitution to recompense you for that, the fair market value. And our Constitution is really clear with regard to takings. You can only take property for very specific government purposes. This type of thing that's going on out there sure looks like a taking. It certainly is analogous to taking. If I have a business and I'm in compliance with the law, and yet you prohibit me from opening up, not only for a day due to some kind of immediate necessity, like if a bank robbery is going on and they need your facility to contain that, that's not going to necessarily be a taking. Perhaps it is, but that's a more rational approach. But when they tell me I can't open up my business for 45 days, and which will probably be extended, you never know what they're going to do for another 60 days, that is certainly analogous to a taking, and that's why some people make the argument that the feds and the state need to send all this money to business owners. It was because they've shut them down. That was the theory by some of my colleagues on why PPP was a constitutionally acceptable remedy.
Interesting. Another question. No. I think I get it. No. I think I get it. I definitely think people should definitely ask attorneys about this, because this is ridiculous. And I want to ask you about the governor's power in just a second. But a couple days ago, Attorney General William Barr basically wrote out a directive telling U.S. attorneys to look out for governors overreaching in this situation and using this kind of power. Do you think that this is something that the Governor Ducey should face the music to? Should a U.S. attorney sue him by saying you are you're ordering businesses to stay closed? You're not, salons, gyms, that kind of stuff without due evidence. You are basically stopping the economy. What Barr wrote is that the Constitution forbids undue interference with the national economy. So if a state or local ordinance crosses the line, and basically the Department of Justice may have an obligation to address this overreach in federal court. Do you think that should happen here?
Well, if there had not been a threat of criminal charges being brought against somebody who was opening up their business, if this had been treated as a guideline, then I think there would have been the governor's position would have been more solid. I think he could have said, look, for 15 more days, we advise this, these are guidelines, and we think this really should happen. But when you then inform people that if you fail to follow my mandate, I'm going to bring criminal charges against you, you may have crossed the line. That would be, I'll leave that up to the AG. But for me, that's the distinction here. Up till now, we've looked at these things as kind of guidelines or what have you, but we haven't viewed them as a law. And this is where my question is: what law do you think? Where do you think you have the authority to dictate this? And I haven't seen anything that supports coming out and saying, if you open your business, we're going to treat you as a Class 1 misdemeanor. And that's I'm sure they're going to find something, but that's going to be tenuous. I think it's constitutionally suspect, and I do think that the Attorney General Barr, has laid it out pretty well in his he issues 2 memos in the last week to 10 days on this subject, and I think that if I was the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, I'd be looking into this very closely, and I might issue a letter myself saying, look, you can issue guidelines, but show me your authority to issue criminal ultimatums on people.
Congressman Andy Biggs is on KNST AM 790. Listen, I appreciate it. This is huge. I mean, I appreciate your legal advice and advice as a congressman. This is pretty big what's
no
you're
legal
saying
advice
right here.
This is just music.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not legal advice. Yes, legal deep thoughts on the legal perspective by Congressman Andy Biggs. We'll go with that. So, just a few years ago, you were a member of the legislature here in Arizona, and now there's a whole bunch of Republicans in the state legislature that are calling for a concurrent resolution to end this stay-at-home order, this state of emergency. They're talking about an Arizona Revised Statute 26-303, Section F. Basically, what they want to do is take a vote. They need every Republican in the state house, 31 out of 60, to vote for this. If Ducey peels off one, it's over. But if they can do this, they can actually, void the governor's stay-at-home order. One, do I have that right? Two, do you think this is something they should pursue?
I think they definitely need to pursue it. The concurrent resolution won't necessarily override what the governor's saying, but what it does is it says what the people want. Because these legislators, they represent districts of people all over the state, and they should do this, and they should do it very forcefully and strongly. And then I think the other thing that they need to make inquiry is to what sections of Title 13 or some other code in the state statutes would authorize this kind of threat of criminal conduct. And I'm sure there is a statute somewhere that's obscure that they're going to try to hang their hat on. But you should be pursuing that as well. Those are the two things that I'd be pursuing if I was in the legislature.
Okay, and I actually just got a Brett Roberts and Mark Fincham, both in the legislature, just sent me a press release, something about, I don't want to get into the 36-787 Section F, but during a state of emergency or a state of war, emergency, the public health is not endangered. Nothing in this title shall authorize department. Anyway, they say we support this provision in law that the legislature has retained and on behalf of the people permits the legislature to overturn the broad and onerous order. So I guess that's what they want to do. They say they have the power to overturn it.
Then have at it, man. Because look, there's some important facts here. The Constitution is not suspended. You can't, for instance, you can suspend the right of habeas corpus, etc. You can't do that at this time. So that's one point. The second point is real simple. Because our constitutional rights remain in place, you cannot compel me to stay in my house. That is tantamount to kind of a martial law or an imprisonment. You can't compel me to do that. You can't prevent me from working and earning my a living. If you do, and then I would have the choice. You've obviated my choices. And so right now, if I want, I should be allowed to go work or to go out in public. If I feel insecure in that or feel threatened by that, then I can stay in my home. I have that right. But this is the weirdest thing I've seen, where we are quarantining healthy people. We are saying, if you are healthy, you will stay home. That's almost antithetical to a public health emergency, where you would say to those who are ill, we're going to quarantine you. You see, we've actually flipped this whole thing on its end, and it becomes a practice in authoritarianism rather than a practice in constitutional recognition of freedom in a constitutional republic.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like there's more to it here. Like, it's like people, no matter what political party, they're getting drunk with power. And I don't know if they're afraid of the media, their own shadow. I don't know what it is, but something's weird that's happening here. A couple more before. I know you're on a time crunch, Congressman Biggs. I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of the president putting out hope, right? Putting out hope, putting out positivity. Let's get everything open. I want to see he said, I want to see the Yankees play at Yankee Stadium. And then Fauci comes out and says, we may not see sports in 2020. It seems like every time the president says something in public, Fauci goes on some interview and just cuts him off at the knees. What can anything be done about this? I know the president's in a tough spot. If he fires Fauci, that's a whole new scandal the media will create.
Yeah, I mean, I've been advocating that Fauci and Birx long ago overstayed their welcome. They both should be ushered off the stage. He doesn't have to fire him, but he can just keep him off stage and say, "Look, you're done. You're not coming to these press conferences with me anymore as long as you undermine me," because they do undermine him. They are purveyors of desolation and doom. They've killed faith and brought instead fear. They've killed hope and brought a despair. That's what these two people have done. And the bottom line is, I've heard the president say many times, we need to get this economy open as quickly as possible. And then Fauci will go out and say something like, you can't open it. If you open it too soon, you're going to get a second wave. Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. We are unsure of that. But so how long? He was the one who said, first, if you bend the curve, if you flatten the curve, we're going to open up. We can open up the economy. But guess what? The curve has been flattened, and they're not opening up. Because now the new mantra is nobody can get sick. Nobody can get sick. We don't want anybody to get sick. Because if anybody gets sick, somebody might potentially die. And because that's the new mantra, we will never, ever come around if that's the case, because somebody always runs the risk of getting sick.
Can I just change a little bit? What should be the top story, and it's being covered up by this virus, is what happened to General Flynn.
Yes. And
the fact it took years. I mean, why didn't the FBI, anybody, the FBI, an attorney general, why couldn't anybody get this handwritten note by this Bill Priestap, who was the assistant director at the FBI, who said in a handwritten note about Mike Flynn when they went in for the interview, what's urgent about it? Truth and admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired? That's insane. The FBI was so corrupt up top.
Yeah, it was. That you're right. At any other time, that's going to be your top story, and you combine it with the FISA abuse from the same guys at FBI, and for both were for political purposes. So when you see the corruption there, that should be the top story. You can barely get a word in edgewise on it on the national media. That's for sure. But these guys need to be prosecuted. Christopher Wray needs to be fired. Christopher Wray has helped suppress this evidence for 2.5 years now, and they've stonewalled Congress, where Congress has requested a lot of this information. I know I've requested a lot of this information, and we've never received it. I've talked to a lot of investigative reporters who were actually working on this from the beginning, and they if it weren't for some secret informants, this stuff would not have come out. And that is the corruption that still persists because of the power of secrecy of within the FISA court and the abuses here. And I would say that Sidney Powell has done a great job as General Flynn's attorney, because Flynn got the flim-flam from his own attorney the first time around. This is some of the most outrageous misconduct you will ever see by government police apparatus, and it's shunted to the back pages.
Yeah, it's hopefully get this over with and we concentrate on that and get the corruption gone. I'm just over it. Congressman, I'll get you on again next week if you don't mind, because this is going to continue. Appreciate all of your time and your insight and your passion. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, Garrett. Have a great one.